Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the Glenorchy Planning Authority for the 27th of January 2026. I'd first like to start by acknowledging the Murwillumbah people as the traditional owners of the land. We recognise all Tasmanian Aboriginal people as the original owners and the continuing custodians of the land and the waters of this island, the Chihuahua. We pay our respects to the Aboriginal elders, past and present. We continue to work and we certainly commit to working for a city that welcomes and respects all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. My name is Russell Yaxley. I'm the Acting Mayor of Glenorchy and the Chair of this afternoon's Planning Authority. And joining me this afternoon are my fellow members. We have Alderman Stephen King, Alderman Tim Marks, Alderman Josh Cockshut, and Alderman Justin Stringer. We've also got a number of our council team present as well as our CEO here this afternoon who is attending. So item number one is our Planning Authority Declaration. The Glenorchy Planning Authority intends to act as a planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. The Planning Authority has the full power to make planning decisions on behalf of the council. Our meeting procedures are as follows. Our planning officer will present the assessment and recommendation and then any answers of any questions from our elected members. The chairperson, myself, will invite the applicant and any interested parties to have their say by addressing the meeting. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes, and please note that at this stage no decision has been made. The chairperson may ask the planning officer to comment on any matters that are raised. The planning authority discusses the application. For statutory planning applications, the planning authority decides the application and the senior statutory planner explains the appeal rights, and for planning scheme amendments, the strategic plan explains the decisions made by the Planning Authority and the Tasmanian Planning Commission. So our legal requirements, when deciding an application, the authority is required by law to seek to further the sustainable development and the objectives of the Act, consider representations received during the public notification period and make the decision by reference of the planning scheme provisions. The rules are very simple, just to comply with the directions given by myself and to please respect the views of others and their right to have a say. Item number two, we'll move on to apologies and leaves of absence. I have no apologies as such. Yes, the Mayor. Yes, the Mayor is currently away. Otherwise, we have got a full crew of our four here for our Planning Authority. Item number three, are there any pecuniary interests from the members here today? No? So that be please noted in the minutes. Item number four is a confirmation of the minutes. Do I have someone that can move the minutes of the Planning Authority? Alderman Tim Marks is the mover. I have a second. Alderman Stephen King. Is there any discussion required?
No, it's just that it's doing correct.
Yep, no worries. Anything else? Alderman Cockshut, Alderman Stringer? No, that's not a problem. So all in favour to move, raise your hands. That's passed unanimously. Item number five, we'll move on to the report on the representations, Combined Planning Scheme Amendment 263, 271 and 293 Main Road, Austin's Ferry, and Planning Permit Application Request 271 and 273 Main Road, Austin's Ferry. And I will hand over to our planning team to present.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this presentation is to provide a report on the representations received on the Combined Planning Scheme Amendment and Planning Permit for the subject property. So you can see here on the screen it deals with 3 sites, 293, 271 and 263 Main Road in Austin's Ferry. The site of 271 Main Road is where the proposed 42-unit development is to go. So the planning scheme amendment is combined with a request for a planning permit for redevelopment on that site. The draft amendment and the planning permit were prepared and approved by the GPA meeting on the 13th of October 25, and it subsequently went to exhibition from the 5th of November to the 2nd of December 2025. It is noted that while the GPA resolved to prepare the planning scheme amendment in October, there was an issue with one of the owner's consents, that was actually resolved between on behalf of the applicant and reinstated, and therefore council officers proceeded to exhibition of the prepared amendment and planning permit. It's noted too that what was prepared and the decision that the GPA made at that meeting, there was no issue with the owner consent at that point in time. So following a discussion with the TPC noted that everything was done in accordance with the Act. It was a subsequent decision about owner consent, but that was subsequently resolved. Throughout the exhibition period, 7 representations were received. So 3 were basically supportive of the amendment. 2 of those were proposing some changes to the amendment. 3 were, I guess you could kind of say, neutral, not actually specifically objecting to the amendment or the development proposal, but raising some concerns. And 1 representation opposed aspects of the proposed development. I believe the report gives significant detail about the issues and so forth that were raised and how officers feel that that they have been addressed. But I'll just touch on at a high level on the representations. So in respect to the actual development, there were issues raised about vehicle access and circulation. It's considered that they have been addressed through conditions of the permit that was previously granted. There are some issues around stormwater. Again, believe that they were actually considered through the assessment process and have been addressed via conditions of the permit. There were some issues around privacy and security. Those issues related to seeking screening of the area of the driveway. Now, under the SPPs, there's no requirement to screen a driveway, although there are requirements to screen, the access way, although there are requirements to screen areas where there might be like an elevated car parking space, which is next to the window of an adjoining of a dwelling, and any kind of screening where the driveway actually runs very close to habitable room windows of a dwelling. They have been screened. This issue was raised about kind of the access way where it's not actually in close proximity, doesn't trigger any of those requirements in the SPP. We believe that they've been adequately addressed in the assessment. The final issue there that it was raised, I guess, about the development proposal was in respect to construction impacts, potential kind of noise and rodents and infestation in that regard. There's nothing technically in the planning scheme that kind of manages rodents, and noise on site would be managed through various kind of construction methods, etc. So we believe those either addressed through a condition or can be followed up through other legislation if they are to become a significant matter. So the other elements in the representations really related to the planning scheme amendment. There was issues raised about needing to improve pedestrian connectivity. It's unfortunate that the state government provided that representation after we kind of had a preliminary discussion with them. However, our property services and our transport traffic engineers looked at these issues around connectivity and feel that the development proposal is actually providing the best outcome to have the two in respect to having a separation of pedestrians and cars, and also noting that kind of including another pedestrian connectivity strip within the planning scheme amendment is probably not going to actually achieve much more than what's already there. There's not a significant saving in respect to walkable distances. I'll just jump to the third one there, yet land use conflict. The issues that were raised in respect to that related back to a number of, or two representatives who are within the industrial land. They noted that when this very similar planning scheme amendment came to the GPA and went through the Tasmanian Planning Commission a couple of years ago, the Commission raised some issues around making sure that there is significant protection and non-fettering of industrial land, and also raised concerns around whether the proposed draft control adequately addresses issues such as not just noise, but also kind of light emissions and particulate matter as well. As part of the assessment process for this kind of second time to have a look at this proposal, those issues have been addressed, and there was documentation provided to indicate that it was unlikely to be any kind of significant impacts from lighting and so forth on the proposal. So from an officer's perspective, we believe that they have been adequately addressed through the planning scheme amendment controls, if not also addressed through other existing codes in the planning scheme that can pick those elements up. So going to that middle one, the use and development restrictions on 293 Main Road. So 293 Main Road is probably here. So this property has the most significant restrictions on it in the draft planning scheme amendment that was exhibited, really limiting the area for development because it's the area that's most impacted by potential noise from the industrial areas, and really limiting development to only like a proportion of the development site. The applicant provided a further detailed noise assessment report and reviewed any opportunity about whether that land area where development could occur could be extended. As part of their representation that they've put forward. Council officers have reviewed that and also reviewed the applicant's revised specific area plan provisions. We're fairly comfortable with those changes. I guess from our perspective, we were keen, I suppose, to see more opportunity for development on 293, but we still are concerned about any noise impacts. So we're happy with the revised acoustic report that's been provided by the applicant to demonstrate that there could be ways, either through an acceptable solution such as a fence, potentially including a gate, to enable more of that land to be developed. These changes are basically to the specific area plan, so there's no actual development application for 293 at this point in time. So any future development on that site would need to demonstrate whether they can actually achieve those requirements of the acceptable solution. And if they can't, they do have that pathway through the performance criteria to demonstrate there are adequate acoustic methods that are proposed as part of that development to make sure that they're self-protecting, like all the other properties, from any impacts from the light industrial land to the north and west of the site. So in that regard, that representation was the only matter that required changes or recommended changes to the specific area plan. So basically it's allowing for development for more sensitive uses in precinct 3 and applying some additional standards. So they're kind of set out in the draft specific area plan, which is attached to the report. And that's, I guess, what we're recommending to you. Now, if it does go through to the Tasmanian Planning Commission in that form, it's probably likely that the Tasmanian Planning Commission, because these are changes that go, I guess, allow more rather than kind of are more restrictive, it's likely that the Tasmanian Planning Commission would recommend that it be re-advertised for another round of consultation. So that's done by the Tasmanian Planning Commission, not necessarily by council. But if that was the case, the application or any representations would come back again to the GPA to be considered of what kind of impacts that may be. Just finishing there, I guess when any kind of recommendations are made to a specific area plan, we have to make sure that it's not going to have any kind of impact on our local provision schedule as a whole. It still meets the LPS criteria required under section 34. So just affirming, we believe that that is still the case for this amendment, even though we're recommending changes to the amendment. So our final recommendation to you is that you agree to the changes outlined in the attachments and affirm your decision in relation to the planning permit, no modifications on that, and that all the representations, the GPA report and the representations and all the associated documentation be forwarded to the Tasmanian Planning Commission for the next step in the process.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions from any authority at all?
No, I'd just like to say it's really well presented. Thank you for that, Linda.
Yeah, my only question was just in terms of the correction, in terms of that adjustment. So just to clarify, so the Tasmanian Planning Commission will, if there was any further representations coming from that potential advertisement, that would then come back to us here and then go back to them.
That's the legislation basically says that the Tasmanian Planning Commission kind of direct that change and direct that planning scheme kind of modification.
Yep.
Usually they call it like kind of a bit of a substantial modification, and the legislation then says it needs to go back through kind of the process. So like as officers, we would require that it comes to the GPA, even though that's not really set up in that legislation. It implies that it does do that full loop again.
Yep.
And I'm sure the Commission would be quite happy with us giving a little bit of extra time to facilitate that, to ensure that the elected members, if something was to happen out of that and we wanted a more substantial change, I'm sure the Tasmanian Commission would be happy for the GPA to review that. If there's nothing, if no representations come from that, our normal practice is if there's no representations, we send it straight on to the Commission for their decision.
That's great. So I will ask now if there's any questions from the people we have in chamber. Welcome. Is there any questions that you'd like to ask our team? Eddie, I have had one.
I was going to ask a question, but I'll take it directly to the planning officer. It's just a technical question. I'll take it up.
Okay, not a problem. Yep, I can do that. So if there's no questions from the floor, we will go to the moving on the motion. So is there any representatives here on the floor who would like to make a comment? No. Yeah. So to move the motion, if I can get a mover of the motion, that's Alderman Tim Marks, and seconder to Alderman Cockshut. I'll hand over to you, Alderman.
I think it's very well set up, and it's something that we have been looking for, is filling in of zones in our city that we are not using, and to change this to a residential zone, I think this is a very good idea and will start us off on a very good foot with showing people that Glenorchy is open to business.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman King?
Thanks, Chair. It's been around for a while. Excellent presentation, Linda. Made very clear to all and sundry where we're at, what we're doing, why we're going to do it. We'll just wait and see what happens with the TBC and just well done.
Anyone else? Alderman Cockshut?
Thank you. echo my fellow aldermen's comments here. I think it's great to see us with this opening up land for housing, which is well needed. And obviously, we'll go through the process, and if it goes to the Planning Commission, so there. But I think all in all, a very detailed, well thought out report, and appreciate everyone's work into it.
Thank you. And, yeah.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Again, echoing the sentiments of the fellow alderman there. It's a great report, and thank the hard work of the officers to put it together to help us open up this land as well, because it's an important step for us as Glenorchy City Council to develop these regions for the greater scheme. So, well done. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just make a comment. I'm certainly comfortable with the planner's comments and the recommendations in the report. Also, obviously note the representations as well. Certainly take them on board, but I'm happy with the answers that the planner certainly have provided. So I'm very comfortable to move this through to the next stage. So I will put the motion. All of those in favour, raise your hands. That's passed unanimously. And I'll hand back to you to explain anything else that you require.
Sure. Thank you. So I guess we're at this point here, considering representations and any modifications. So the next step is it will go to the Tasmanian Planning Commission. They undertake an assessment, and hopefully we get a positive decision.
Perfect. That brings us to that was our final item on the agenda this evening. So I thank everyone for coming into chambers, those here and those online for viewing, and we will close the meeting at 2:21. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Afternoon. Your afternoon's up to you. The evening.
And it won't let me get to the Wi-Fi until I sign.
So yes, there'd be a summary of that representation.
I saw that. I saw that.
I've been wanting to go on one of them stages. Always been finally got it. Never